Hello everybody, this is my 34th review of films to come out in 2025, and today we're finally talking about Superman. This was written and directed by James Gunn, and of course James Gunn is the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, which I would say are definitely some of my favorite Marvel movies. I especially like the second one, and he also directed The Suicide Squad, important distinction, which I really enjoyed as well. So let's cut to the chase. Would I recommend Superman 2025? Totally. I have some issues with it, which I'll get into later in this review, but overall, there's only a couple movies this year that I've enjoyed more than this. I've seen it twice in theaters and really enjoyed it both times. This is probably the closest a live-action superhero movie has gotten to feeling like an actual comic book. I've mentioned before, I'm a really big fan of the first two Raimi Spider-Man movies, and I feel like in a lot of ways, this is more similar to one of those films than like a Marvel film. There's a lot more style here in terms of camera work, framing, composition, lenses. Even if you're not a film person, you will notice weird things going on in terms of that stuff. And there's also kind of a similarity to those Raimi Spider-Man movies in terms of tone. James Gunn has a real talent for making superhero movies with effective emotional moments. I love the way he's always including weird and obscure characters and humanizing them as well. He's obviously great at making killer soundtracks for these superhero movies, and I also really appreciate the way that he handles action in these movies. It always feels big and dramatic, but it's not like overwhelming. There's not a bunch of shit cluttering the screen and you don't know what to look at. Your eyes always have something clear to follow, you always know what's happening, and it's also always motivated by something going on with the characters. I do think that if you are going to watch this, it is a good idea to have some background on Superman, because if you know nothing, this probably will be kind of confusing. The movie doesn't really bother explaining things it kind of expects you to know. In terms of performances, I think David Cornsweet, it's a funny last name, that's a really British last name. In terms of performances, I think David Cornsweet is a great Superman. The approach to the character is pretty comedic, and I like that. Superman in this movie feels kind of naive, but extremely pure and good-hearted, and you immediately really like him. I was also shocked how much I enjoyed Nicholas Hoult in the role of Lex Luthor. I think he's extremely funny in this movie. But I think Eddie Gathegi really stole the show here. Not only did I think he was the best comedically, but I think he had a lot of the best moments in terms of action, and he just has a lot of the best lines. I thought he was super funny. I loved Mr. Terrific in this movie. The soundtrack is really good, obviously. That's not really a question with James Gunn, but I also really like the way they used the old Superman themes in this movie. The way they modernized it worked really well. The editing was noticeably great. There's a lot of funny and really dynamic edits that make the movie feel super energetic, and I think the whole pacing of the film is fantastic. It's kind of a long movie, past 2 hours, but it does not feel it at all, partially because there's a lot going on, there's a lot of characters, but the movie never gets overly confusing, and it just doesn't dwell on things too long in a way that was super tight. I really appreciated the pacing and editing in this movie. Honestly, I thought it was one of the strongest aspects of the film, which was kind of surprising to me because as much as I really did enjoy The Suicide Squad, I think the editing was kind of weak at a lot of points. Alright, let's get into the critiques. My number one complaint for this movie is there's a very cartoony tone for Superman as a character, and a lot of the characters he fights in the movie, a lot of the foes. But there's also a side to this movie that I think is definitely trying to make you think of the real world, real conflicts, real news organizations, real political parties, and it just did not mesh for me. I'm gonna go into spoilers now, so if you haven't seen the film and don't want to be spoiled, stop watching now. To continue what I was saying, there's a part of that movie that really annoyed me where Lex Luthor exposes Superman on a news show that I think is definitely trying to reference Tucker Carlson. But he exposes a message from Superman's parents that's basically them saying, humanity should bow to you, you should have a harem. It obviously makes Superman look kind of bad, but then everybody in the entire world just instantly hates him, and they're like throwing cans at him. There's like a guy that goes on the news and is like, I love Superman, but now I hate him. Considering how polarized our world is, I just don't see how the entire world at that moment just unanimously turns on Superman. And based on his actions, there's just like no reason in the movie that anyone should think that Superman is evil or anything like that. And like the moment before this, Superman destroys a kaiju and saves a bunch of people and a squirrel. So I just think it's extremely dumb to say that like everybody now hates him, and I hated the over serious music they play at this moment of the movie. And what made it worse for me is later in the movie, there's a reveal and everybody hates Lex Luthor now, and one guy says on the news something like, you know, if there's one thing Republicans and liberals can coexist on, can agree on, it's that Lex Luthor sucks. Which just made my eyes roll so hard. It just feels so safe and inoffensive to put that in a movie, but it also feels like if this polarization between political parties exists in this world, then maybe we should see it at one point in the movie? Like, why include that if in this movie everybody is unanimous on everything? So yeah, the moment where everybody turns on Superman is the one major plot point in the movie that did not work for me. But I do love that after this scene, Superman isn't even concerned with his reputation, he's just worried about his dog. Like, the next scene is him breaking into a building, finding Lex Luthor, and you think he's gonna be mad about him breaking into his lair, you know, invading his privacy, exposing this thing about his parents, or, you know, even destroying his reputation, but no, he's just like, where is my dog? That was super funny, and one of my favorite moments in the movie. The other aspect of the real world and the comic booky stuff not meshing is the foreign conflict that takes place in this movie between two fictional countries. Which one country clearly has a language and buildings that are very similar to Russian, and the way the entire conflict is explained shares a lot with Israel and Palestine right now. James Gunn has said that he's not referencing any real-world countries or conflicts and that the script was written years ago, but I'm not sure I entirely believe him. But even if that is the case, this is just portrayed in a way that's way too realistic for the tone of this movie, and kind of oversimplifying real-world issues in a way that's really weird to me. The movie's heart is in the right place. I think it's not immoral or offensive or anything like that. I just want it to go further with the cartooniness and comedy and take itself a little less seriously. Because for the most part, it does not take itself seriously. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is in a pocket universe that Lex Luthor created, where characters are trapped in, and we get introduced to Lex Luthor's, like, monkeys typing on computers, which are just, like, typing tweets about Superman, saying mean things about him. That was fucking awesome, and I thought it was hilarious. I also love the super colorful, weird action sequence during the escape. The ending of the entire movie I thought was really sweet and worked really well. Lois Lane's relationship with Clark Kent was also a highlight for me. I like her portrayal as, like, the more cynical person, and I thought it made her character more interesting than any other portrayal I've seen. She also has quite a bit of agency in the plot without having superpowers or anything, and I like the way they did that. I don't really have much more to say. This is in many ways exactly what I want from a superhero movie, even if there's a few things that I didn't like. So yeah, I'm gonna give this 3.5 stars out of 5. Tomorrow I will make a review for the Fantastic Four, so subscribe if you'd like to see that. In the description, I will put a link to my Letterboxd list ranking all the movies I've seen of 2025 so far. Here is the ranking so far. There's Superman, and there is all of the rest of the movies I've seen. There should also be a link to the YouTube playlist of all my 2025 film reviews. You can also find that on my channel page and right here on the left side of your screen. Thank you for watching. Comments and likes are very much appreciated. They help boost me in the algorithm, and that is all I gotta say. See ya.